Selamat siang, good afternoon. Ya, buat teman-teman di Jakarta, selamat siang. Hopefully you had a nice lunch. Ya, pada habis makan siang ya, mudah-mudahan nggak ngantuk ya. Welcome to today's webinar. Topiknya How Artificial Intelligence is Revolutionizing the Financial Industry. So we'd like to share with you how financial institutions can use AI robotic to stay ahead. Before we start, let me introduce myself. I'm Yen Yen. I am a partner of Active Asia and True VA Consulting, based in Jakarta and Dubai. We're a firm focused in helping financial institutions and fintech to deliver digital transformation and innovation through consulting, training, and solutions. This webinar is jointly hosted with AI Rooter. AI Rooter is a leading provider in interactive voice robot solutions based in Indonesia, India, and Philippines. We're pleased to have us today the CEO of AI Rooter, Kun, as our speaker. Kun currently is based in Shanghai, but he spent quite some time in Jakarta. Kun has many years of experience in AI technology, having previously worked in Kutek, a company listed in New York Stock Exchange, involved in touchpad keypad. Our next speaker, who just joined us, very timely, is Vit. Vit is the head of, welcome Vit. Vit is the head of collection of Finstar Group. He is an early adopter of robotic. Vit previously ran a fintech in Indonesia, and he will share with you his experience on using robotic for loan collection, especially in Indonesia. The agenda for today is as follows. Agenda page, if you don't mind. Yes. So we will talk about AI robotics, and then some of the general usage, interesting example that Kun will share with you. The most important is the adoption of AI in the financial industry, whether it's banks, finance companies or insurance companies. Some of the challenges of AI, and we're going to talk about the social responsibilities. Last but not the least, of course, we'll wrap up with question and answers. But feel free, sementara ini, if you have any questions, any comment, you can use the Q&A feature in the webinar. Jadi kalau di bawahnya ada Q&A, you can use that feature. Or if you want to use the chat feature, by all means, send us your questions along the way. We will try to get Kun to answer them along the webinar. Otherwise, we will leave it to the end of the session. If you have any questions for Vit, please feel free to also type in your question. I guess at the end of the webinar, we will we'll wrap up the webinar in a newsletter, which we will share with you in our LinkedIn profile. So with that, I guess I'll pass on to Kun, the expert, to talk you through this interesting topic. Kun, it's all yours.
Okay, thanks, Yan, and thanks everybody who joined this session. So in this talk, I'll briefly introduce what AI is and how to adopt AI in financial industry, as well as how to meet certain challenges using AI. The first part is about AI itself. So I believe everybody here somehow have heard the term artificial intelligence. So what it is, we all know the hard Terminator in the Hollywood movie, and also the AlphaGo, who beat the most intelligent human beings on this planet, and also the intelligent toilet can check health. So the science of training machines to perform human tasks is what we call AI. And let's say incorporates machine with human-like intelligence and let them do things that used to be done by human beings, but in a more scalable and a more efficient way. This is what AI is all about. And to enable AI, we need two very important factors: machine learning and big data. They are the foundation of AI. So without machine learning and big data, we don't have AI. So you must want to know what machine learning and big data really is, respectively. So by machine learning, if you search it online, the Google will tell you something like, it's just a bunch of computer algorithms that can improve automatically through experience. So the key word here is experience. That is how human being really learn something. We're exposed to data, and then we recognize the pattern from this data. Let's make an example here. So as a baby, as a 2-year-old baby, how does the baby learn to recognize dogs and cats. Normally, the parents will tell the baby what a dog and cat is by showing the baby some pictures or what we call samples of real dogs and cats. And the same process applies to machine learning. In order to let a computer to distinguish dogs and cats, we have to expose a lot of huge amount of data to the machine. So this is what we call machine learning. The key difference here is for human to learn something, maybe we only need a small amount of data, but for machine to learn, we need a lot of data. Here is a real life example. We take 2 steps in order to let machine learn cats and dogs. First, we cluster or gather a lot of pictures about different genres of cats and dogs from different angles with different backgrounds and so forth. And then we train a machine learning model, and we can then feed the machine with an unseen new picture containing dogs and cats, like what you can see in the second step. And you are pretty sure that in this case, the machine can recognize that there are 2 dogs and 1 cat in this very new picture. And from the left part, I also like to say that in order to make the machine learning work, we need to have big data that have 3 very important features, characteristics. The first one is volume, the second one is diversity, and the last one is domain. I'll talk about these 3 features later in this talk. So you might also want to know how many different kinds of artificial intelligence that have been widely used in different industries. The main 2 different branches of AI are computer vision and natural language processing. And they are very like the 2 very important ability of human beings. It is our eyes and our language skill. The first type is what we call computer vision. And with this technology, machines are able to interpret and categorize projects in images and videos. Let's see the examples illustrated here. Taobao, you might know, is one of the most famous online shopping platforms in China. And in order to find some interesting product you want to buy, you don't have to key in the keywords, but instead you can take a picture of the product and Taobao will search the product for you by image search. And second example is the self-driving cars, where the vehicle is able to use different sensors and algorithms to detect different objects on the street, like the pedestrians, other vehicles, and also the traffic lights. So when we call computer vision, there are several different branches of technology, such as object recognition, motion analysis, and so on. Another example is very interesting. JD.com is another very well-known e-commerce platform. It also has branches in Jakarta, and they now have opened a lot of so-called unmanned store, where as a customer, you just walk straight into the store, take some goods you want to buy, and go straight out of the store without having to talk to any clerk or taking out your wallet to pay the money, because everything has been taken care of automatically. And here we use the very similar technology, including facial recognition, object tracking, and so forth. And the second type of AI, like I said earlier, is about natural language processing. It automates tasks that involves understanding of languages. And this is very different from computer vision, because language skill is something that only human beings can have. But for computer vision, for the vision skill, I think all the mammals, many animals also have that kind of skill. So to process language data, it is more difficult than process, the image data. And there are very important 3 branches in natural language processing. They are ASR, NAU, and TTS. ASR stands for the automatic speech recognition, and it serves as the ears of human beings. So it will transcribe the voice of our language into text. And second one is natural language understanding, and it is like our brain. So it will process the underlying meaning and implication of our language, the sentences of our utterance. And last one is text to speech, and it's just like our mouse. It will convert the other way around from the text into voice. So with these three things combined together, the ears, the brain, and the mouth, we can build a quote unquote robot to interact with human beings. The examples of natural language processing applications, including the translation pen, which you can use when you travel to another country, talking to somebody who speaks a foreign language, and also the smart TV, where you don't have to use a remote, more conventional remote control to find programs, but instead you can just talk to the TV directly to find anything you might feel interested in. And second one is Haidilao Hot Pot. It's a very famous chain restaurant, also have its branches in Jakarta. I visited there once in Jakarta. So in some of their outlets, they try to use hardware robots to take care of everything from preparing food, taking orders, delivering food to the table, and taking bills. So everything can be done without waiters and waitresses. And last one example here is about my personal experience in Jakarta. The first time I was in Jakarta, I tried to buy a cup of coffee for myself. And the moment I swiped my credit card, I received a telephone call from my bank. And in the telephone call, somebody asked me to confirm the transaction I was about to make in Jakarta, because it was the first time, and they used some fraud detection technology to make that phone call. And to my surprise, that phone call was from a robot. So it's a very useful and good user experience and use case where when the bank detected there might be some problem or fraud happening in real life, they can immediately use technology to prevent that sort of fraud, but without compromising the user experience.
No,
So this is what.
Yeah, that is very powerful, right? Because in the past, when you go travel and the credit card detect a possible fraud on your card, what typically happens is they reject your card, right? And they need you to call the bank. So I think this is definitely a step ahead.
Yeah. So in conclusion, the reason so many industries and businesses are adopting AI technology in their businesses and existing operation procedures is the same with so many old school technologies. We want to use newer generation of technologies, in this case, artificial intelligence, to cut our operation costs, to boost our business efficiency, and most importantly, to increase our revenue or profit margin, which is very significant and substantial in financial industry.
Yeah, Kun, I think this is a very powerful slide. Let's just, because all these guys that were dealt in, most of us, especially the COVID, they're all interested in boosting bottom line. So if you can, maybe towards the end, I know you have some interesting case study, just elaborate on the cost benefit, right? Especially on the return on investment on using AI. There was a question going back to the slide that you had, like, in the case of, the credit card that called you back, I think one of the questions came as to how does the robot know which language you're speaking to? Is it by default that because it's a Chinese credit card, they speak to you Chinese? So how does it, but do you think the bank can actually have different language profile for the robot?
So there are actually two ways to solve this problem. The first is, like you said, the bank must have some sort of user profile data, so that before they make a phone call to engage this very particular customer, they should know which language the customer normally speaks, so that they can engage with the customer in a very efficient way. The second scenario, we must use AI to try to guess the language that the customer should speak. For example, in many countries, including India, we also have business in India. They speak more than one language, and they have more than 20 official languages. In this case, for example, for many customers who speak both English and Hindi, we will try to engage them with English first. And if the customer says something like, I don't speak English, or I don't know, or something like that, even in Hindi, we will try to switch to Hindi from English. So we can do the intelligent language switch inside a single telephone conversation.
Okay, that's really powerful, no? For the robot to be able to understand and switch. Thank you so much. That's an interesting feature, definitely. So I guess in some way the robot is smarter than some human beings with language skill. But please continue, Kun. I know you have a lot of interesting slides to share with us.
So the second sector section, we will dive more into a particular industry, which is finance. Most of the audience here should have some sort of background and experience in financial industry. And here I list four very common scenarios where AI can serve in financial industry. The first is personal finance. Second is fraud detection. The third one is loan risk assessment. And last one is customer engagement. AI in personal finance is widely used. It will intelligently analyze ordinary individuals' income, spending behavior, and their maybe recurring expenses, as well as monthly income, then give them the most suitable financial advice about investment so that they can make more better good use of their money to make more money for themselves. And Mate Mobile and Eva Money are two examples here. A second application is fraud detection. So many financial industries, like the case I just said about myself, the credit card scenario, they try to find out if a series of transactions is suspicious in real time and call for some action, like send alerts or notification, or just cut off the transaction, something like that. And by using AI, we can process a wide variety of different data, including the time series, the geolocation, the customer's behavior in the past, and so forth. And the Teradata and DataVisor are two companies doing this. A third category is AI in credit assessment. For any loan product, especially the consumer loan product, we need to have a very robust credit assessment or underwriting process in order to grant the loan to very high quality customers. And with AI, we can do this in a much better way. We can take into consideration not only the application data, but also the behavioral data of these customers in other domains, like their, for example, online shopping history, something like that, if we can gather that sort of data. And
how reliable is that, Frank? Kun, like coming from banking, right? We're so used to traditional hardcore data. So all this behavior data, in your experience, how reliable and how useful is it for financial institutions?
I think it should be very reliable because we have a very thorough and mature methodology to ensure the accuracy in this regard. For example, you don't have to worry about the reliability at first. You can just gather as many data as possible for a group of customers, and you can in your laboratory settings, you can use your loan granting history to analyze this data to see from your historical data what kind of customers behavior are better than maybe the rest of the customers, and you will draw conclusion about the importance of different categories of data. For example, if you find out that the the customer's occupation might play a very important role according to your statistical model. Then you will give that occupation data a very high weight. So in this very scientific methodology, under this very scientific methodology, you can pretty sure that your data will work well in real life. But anyway, you have to be careful when you apply such a data model in real life by rolling out your model in a gradual way. So you don't want to, apply it to millions of your customers at once.
Okay, I think that's a very good advice. Thank you, Kun.
And the last category of AI in financial industry is about customer engagement. And this is really what we are doing right now. There are mainly two different robots that can engage customers. The first one is maybe you are familiar with the chatbot, where your customers can type a textual message back and forth with such chatbot. But we take one step further by providing the financial industry with voice bot, meaning we can talk using voice bot to talk in natural language with customers. As we can see here in the loan product life cycle, there are many different scenarios we can use voice bot to engage customers. From the application phase, we can use a telemarketing robot to gain new customers that are interested in borrowing money from loan company. And in the underwriting process, we can use info checker robot to do telesurvey to confirm certain information of the customers. And after we grant the loan to the customers, we can use a reminder and a collector robot to facilitate the collection process. And after everything has been done, we can use our customer service robot to maybe take care of any questions or concerns to ensure a better customer satisfaction. So in the whole lifetime of a loan product customer, we can use robot to take care of so many different use cases.
Kun, I think there's a question coming in, right? I mean, there are two questions. One is that you mentioned, the 4 typical usage of robots for financial industry, which sounds exciting. But I think the question comes in is, what are some of the challenges, right, in implementing those robot solutions for financial institutions? Challenges and also in terms of the cost, right? That's one question, or maybe 2 questions: challenges and costs. The third question is, that's more from me. I like chatbot and whatever you have, but sometimes as a consumer, the robot doesn't seem to understand you, right? Especially when you go to one of those customer service and online, and they say talk to my robot, or somebody's going to call you. Just the amount of frustration consumers get. So how do organizations drive better customer experience or user experience with robots? So 3 questions. One is challenges in implementing robots for the financial industry, the cost structure, return on investment, and the third one is making your robot really understand what I'm trying to talk to him.
Okay, although I will talk about challenges in details later, but I can.
Okay, sorry.
I can give some hints about what the challenges are adopting AI. I think the most important challenge here is to educate the market to learn about AI, to understand how AI can help them. This is what people normally face when a newer generation of technology emerges. Nobody is familiar with that. So it takes time for everyone in the industry, especially in the financial industry, which is very heavily regulated by the authority, OJK, and the government, to get used to AI technology. And also, we need to reform our IT solution and also our business procedure to some extent in order to plug in AI. So these are the very 2 important challenges. And talking about the cost of adopting AI, the good news is traditionally we have our own data center, we have our own server cluster to run the applications that we need for our companies. But nowadays, companies like Amazon, they have AWS, and Google have Google Cloud. Also, Alibaba had their Ali cloud data centers in Jakarta and Indonesia, so we don't have to take care of the AI infrastructure by ourselves. And also with the help of a very good big data processing methodology and infrastructure, I mean those very fundamental software set, we don't need to program by ourselves to manipulate big data. So it's very easy nowadays for all sorts of businesses to introduce AI technology, to adopt AI technology in their businesses. So this is about cost. And the third, I'm sorry, what is the third question?
Training your robot to be smart.
Oh, okay. This is a very common one, because the idea or the algorithms behind the nowadays AI is very old. So maybe 50 or 60 years ago, we have the computer scientists have learned about how to build a model, how to use neural networks to make machine learn something. But the problem about those very stupid and dumb AI robots is by then we didn't have big data and we didn't have very powerful computers. And now with very big data and very powerful computers readily available, we can train very powerful and intelligent models. So now if we put enough resource and time, product design, and also technical effort, then I think the robot we can have, the AI product we can have, should be very useful for our industries. So next, I'll give you two case studies. The first case study is about our own loan collection robot. And this is from one of our clients. It is a OJK licensed consumer loan fintech company. And the left part of this slide shows how the AI robot can handle a conversation telephone call with a customer. So the first step is to deliver the loan information to the customer. And secondly, we will ask for P2P, promise to pay. And in the process, we try to address concerns and difficulties and questions from the customer. We have a very large set of predefined answers to those concerns and questions, and we can handle them in the process so that we will increase the probability and the likelihood that the customer will understand why they should pay the loan, and they will give us more likely to give us the promise to pay signal. And after each conversation, we will analyze the whole conversation and label the conversation and the customer with certain intention label, whether it's a good customer, a bad customer, so that it can help our client to build their collection behavior database, and also to let their desk agents to follow up those very difficult customers. And in addition to such individual conversation, we also use computers to set up calling strategy, which is very, very important. The strategy here we illustrated includes several phone calls from T-3 all the way to DBD0. And in the T-3 to T-1 period, we will call customers once each day. And if we get the PTP, then we will not call that customer again in the following days. Otherwise, we will make one telephone call each day. And such detailed calling plan will be executed very precisely by robot, because robot will never make mistake. And on DPD0, we will check all those unpaid customers and call them at most twice on that day to ensure a very good collection repayment rate, as we can see on the right part of the screen. So by such a strategy of leveraging voice bot to do the collection, we successfully lowered the inflow rate from 33% to 27%. And the inflow rate here means the proportion of customers who have not paid on the due date. And overall bad debt rate is lowered for 2%. And meanwhile, almost 30% of the operation cost was saved due to the reduction of labor force in the early phase, in this case, in the early phase of the collection cycle. And because the robot has very high concurrency capacity, in our company, we can make more than 1 million outbound telephone calls in a single day, and we can make more than 10,000 telephone calls for an hour. So the efficiency is almost 1,000 times higher than traditional desk agents.
I think this is really powerful, Quinn. Thank you. Because, you know, with COVID, definitely with people working remotely, you can't put a lot of people in one room or in one place. You know, I think this is really helpful, especially with all the financial institutions very much concerned on the, you know, a loan, loan collection and, you know, timeliness of loan repayment, I guess. There are a few questions that came up, Quinn. One is that, you know, most banks and most financial institutions, they already have some kind of a loan collection method now, right? Whether it's SMS, as you mentioned, the customer service. So are we saying to use robot to replace that? Or are we, you know, what do you suggest? That's the first question. Maybe I'll let you answer that first. Yeah.
Okay, I will talk about these very two things here. So including the pandemic, to our surprise, around April and May, we witnessed a very large increased demand in collection robot, because, you know, everybody was working from home, and the work efficiency was significantly lowered. So our clients wanted to use a robot, to use AI to help them with the collection, and collection, you know, really was, maybe many people told me that collection is the most important work KPI for financial institutions. And second thing you mentioned is about the old school technology, such as the one-way interaction, voice message, and also the SMS message. So for this old school technology, there are very, very important difference with our voice bot. That is, our voice bot is able to talk or interact with end customers, so that we know the intention, the concerns of these customers. And then we can build a profile, a picture about such customers, either for desk agents to follow up, or to create our database, our KYC understanding about such customers. So this is how such an interactive robot can offer, where the old school technology such as old IVR or SMS cannot.
Okay, thank you. That's really useful, right? To have some kind of data to understand. So you don't have I guess you don't have your customer service calling, you know, numbers that they don't get through most of the time and stuff like that. So that's really important. So there's two other questions very similar, I think. One is that the easy one, I'll give you the easy one first. The second one is a bit more, I think, more difficult, maybe, in my view. One is, how long does it take to train a robot, right? So from your experience.
So it's not about the absolute time needed to train a robot, but the volume of data and the time needed to process those very big data. In order to train a very smart, for example, speech recognition model, we need approximately 10,000 hours of human speech data, or up to 100,000 human speech data. And nowadays, we might need 1 week or two to process that amount of data. What is more time consuming is you must able to collect those data, and then you let a group of people to label those data to get the correct answer about the transcription of those data. So only after the machine understands the questions and answers, so next time the machine sees some new questions, it will try to figure out the answers.
Yeah. So you mentioned data. There's a lot of questions coming in terms of data, right? Like, you know, what kind of data do you need? Because you did mention that you need big data to be able to teach the robot. So first question is, if I'm a, say, financial institution, let's say, not banks have a lot of data, but let's say I'm a smaller fintech, or I'm a multi-finance or insurance. I don't have the kind of data, or I'm not sure whether I have the data. What do I do? Does it mean I can't do robotic? That's the first question. Secondly is, who keeps the data? Let's say I share with you my data. do I still own the data? I mean, how do I protect, is the data confidentiality? What actually happened to the data?
Okay, so the first question, the answer to the first question is that as a small business, you don't have to worry about the big data yourself, especially if your use case is about speech recognition or natural language understanding, because after AI companies such as us, we collect enough data to build our very intelligent model to let our robot behave like a human being in terms of listening to something, to speak something, or understand something. Then every small companies, as well as large enterprises, can benefit from the same model. As long as we have the model for financial industry, as long as our model, the robot can understand a very particular terminology such as the inflow rate, the due date, something like that, the financial terms, then every small company can benefit. So it's a very good paradigm about adopting AI. It's not like every company have to do the work by themselves. And the second question is about data protection and privacy protection. So it really depends on the type of data or the genre of data we try to utilize. For example, if it's natural language data, it's some conversational data. I don't think it's, in most cases, it's very sensitive, because when we talk about sensitivity of data, we have to first figure out whether from the data we can deduce the people behind those data. If it's very difficult or impossible to tell the real person or real people behind those data, then those data are quite safe for scientific use, to train model for better accuracy. So it really depends on the genres of data. For very sensitive data, I think it's very good if we can separate the data from the business logic. So we can store the data in the financial institution itself, and then we run the business logic in AI companies such as us. So we can not only protect data, but also use AI to facilitate and the business procedures, and also lower the operation cost.
Yeah. Thank you. I hope that answers the question to some of the participants.
Yeah. The second case study is about, like Ian said, the telemarketing robot. So the basic idea stays the same, but the use case, use scenario is somewhat different. So this is a very well-known insurance company in Indonesia, and actually they came to us through our website, and they want to know whether we can build a telemarketing robot for them, because the pain point of this insurance company is they have a group of telesales people calling prospects every day, a very long list of prospects, and only to find most of the prospects have zero interest in buying insurance products. But for the remaining interested prospects, the telephone conversation can last from half an hour to 45 minutes. So they want to understand by AI technology which part of the customers are their real high quality prospects. So what we are doing actually, so this is an ongoing project, is that we use robots to try to call a large list of prospects and introduce the insurance product information to those prospects, and to filter out uninterested ones. And then after each conversation, we will tag or label the prospect as interested one or uninterested one, and we will pass high quality products to their telesales people to follow up. And also after each telephone call, we will send a message to talk more about the details, and maybe the landing page where the prospects can learn more about the insurance product by themselves, so that the next time when the salesperson calls these prospects, maybe there will be a better, more fruitful discussion between them. So in this case, we can ensure a much higher efficiency and a lower cost for customer acquisition for insurance company.
Okay,
so
thank you.
And also, I should also mention that even for the financial industry, in recent months, we saw a surge in the demand for telemarketing robot because during the pandemic, there are so many old customers. These financial companies need to call back by telephone, but it's infeasible for them to group a large army of labor force to call so many different customers.
So there are two questions. One question is, I think I can answer the first question. You've trained me so well. I'm like a robot now. I know how to answer the first question. The first question is what happened when the customers keep declining the call. So a second question is what happened if in the call the customers become rude. So let me answer the first question. Okay, tell me if my answer is correct. So if I guess with robot or with human being, if the customer decline your phone call, there's really nothing you can do. But at least with robot is that you don't waste your human resources calling a number that declined the phone call, because the robot can call in a gazillion more phone calls, and if they get rejected, that's fine. So what you actually do then, you filter the people who reject you and only pass on those that pick up your phone call and show interest and pass on to your human call center, right? See, Kun does the good thing. I'm starting to behave like his robot now. Second, what happens if your robot is rude, right? In the phone, not robot, sorry. What happens if the customer is rude in a conversation? How do you then, what is your calling strategy? Does the robot then hang up, or how does it work?
Okay, so this is one of the very important traits about using robot to ensure good customer experience. Unlike human beings, I should say, to be honest, a robot is emotionless. So no matter how rude or out of control a customer might be, the robot will only say something that has been predefined in this case. Although in the scientific community, in the AI community, there are very advanced topics such as natural language generation, where the text or the response from the robot can be generated in real time. So nobody knows what the robot will talk about in advance. But in our case, the mature methodology about robot design is we have a very large, complicated, and comprehensive dialogue script and dialogue flow to stipulate with our clients about every single possible response that the robot is likely to give to the end customer. So you can regulate the robot in advance, but you cannot regulate your human agents in advance. So by using robot, you never need to worry about that robot will abuse language or say some bad things to the customers. So you will never get that sort of complaints from customers. And although Yan gave a very, very good answer to the question about the reachability, I should say, by using robot. So what if the customer never pick up the phone call? The good thing about us is from historical data, by using data science, we can draw conclusions about what kind of time slots, if you make phone call, you can reach your customer in a better probability. So we will try to, because we have so many capacity to call customers at once, so we can call a lot of customers or all the customers during those time slots to ensure a better reachability connection rate compared with desk agents. So by these very different things between robots and desk agents, you can understand that by using robots, you will have a better customer experience. You can have a higher connection rate, and in the end, you will attain your business goal in a better way.
Oh, that's really useful. Thank you, Kun.
So here comes to the last section. It is about the challenges in adopting AI, although we have talked some part of it, and also the social responsibilities of all the participants about using AI, including AI companies like us, and also the businesses who want to use AI, and also the regulators and the government. So the first challenge is actually about big data itself, and we have I think the audience today are very professional in that they have somehow understand that big data has a lot of challenges in itself. And I list three major challenges. The first is volume. So you have to, it's quite self-evident, you have to gather a large volume of data before you can call it big data, right? And second characteristic about useful big data is diversity. So you have to have a lot of different samples about the same thing in order to train the machine to understand the problem or the pattern in different contexts. So let's get back to the examples of dogs and cats. There are so many different genres of dogs, for example. And if you only show the same genre of dogs to the machine, maybe the machine will find it very difficult to recognize other genres of dogs. And third feature about big data is domain. So we have to use the same domain of data with the problem that we want to solve. If you want the machine to recognize dog, then you have to feed feed the machine with data of dog. So it's very obvious. Like the very funny example we show here in below is that if you don't feed very good big data, then it's very difficult to tell which is dog and which is cookie. And second challenge is about computation power. So traditionally, we have to use our own hardware and server clusters to run applications, business application, enterprise software. But nowadays, we can work with third-party cloud service vendors, such as AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, or in our case, AliCloud, to provide such capability of running very powerful AI applications. And lastly is the social responsibilities of adopting AI. So many people, when they talk about AI, the major concern they have is about the ethics and data security. So ethics is not about AI itself. So AI is neither good or bad. It's really depending on the people who use it or the purpose. The examples I have talked about so far are all very positive ones. But as we can learn that earlier today we had the presidential debate of the United States, right? So Facebook has found that there are some election campaign that will use big data to influence the opinions of the public in a very subtle way. So in those cases, maybe we are influenced by the AI somehow, but we never realize it. So in order to ensure the data security and the privacy protection, I think it's a combined, complicated but combined effort from all sorts of participants, including, like I said, AI company and businesses, and also government. Like the GDPR in the European Union, it's a very comprehensive, strict regulation to ensure the security of data. So I think it's very important for anybody who wants to use AI to realize this. But it's also very important that we cannot compromise the advance of technology and application of those technology in businesses. So we must do two things together: data protection and also adopting new technology such as AI. That is why we want to talk about these things today. And I really appreciate your time and how to say,
there are a few, there are a few questions. I think this is really important. Thank you for being so honest about the ethics and the data security, because we have a lot of people, most of the participants are from financial institutions or industry. Their biggest concern is not so much of the ethics for now, but so much of the data security, which you have addressed. I think there are a few questions coming. One is that, is there any financial companies in Indonesia using AI already? From what I understand, talking to your team, I think a lot of the fintechs in Indonesia are engaging you on the loan collection side. And you're also working with insurance companies and multi-finance companies on both telemarketing and loan collection, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, currently we are working with more than 60 to 70 companies in Indonesia Most of them are in financial industries. I will not disclose the names here, but I can say some of them are very famous multi-finance and fintechs, and also some branches of banks, and also the high-tech sectors. We have a lot of clients, including the online travel agencies, e-commerce platforms. They also have a lot of financial products and some customer engagement requirements.
Yeah. I think you're also talking to banks, but it's that early stage, right? Because you mentioned a good point, which I think maybe the rest of the audience needs to be also be reminded that, you know, adopting AI or robotic is not just turning on the switch, right? It's a matter of also changing the mindset of the organization. It's a matter of you know, the whole revamping some of the processes. So I get the bigger you are, then the more effort that, you know, it needs to go into making all the changes. There's another question comes in terms of, you know, how do companies typically handle, you know, retrenchment or the, you know, staff's responsibility of a lot of risk by staff is being replaced by a robot, right? So how do you see companies handling that?
Okay, so this is actually a very common question, not about, you know, AI in financial industry, but also AI in general. So in the early days, when people are talking about AI, they all fear that, okay, human beings might be replaced by machines entirely. But, you know, when you look back to the history, hundreds of years of history, when new generation of technology emerges, everybody was afraid of technology replacing human beings, right? But it never happened. The reality was that with better technology, people normally have a lot of more room to improve, to do something that is of more importance. For example, if we have computer, we don't need to write things with our pen and paper so that we can do business or talk to other people or to learn something new, to make better use of our time. So in the short term, in a very short term, for example, if the robots can make telephone calls, so we don't need people to make telephone calls, but those people can follow up. For example, the desk agents can follow up those more difficult customers, hard to argue customers, and spend more time on each of such customers to gain a higher repayment rate. So this is what we witness in so many clients who work with us. They don't dispatch their human labor in the early phase of the collection cycle, and they move these people to the later buckets of customers and let them to persuade those late bucket customers to pay the loan. So this is what we actually see.
Yeah, no, I think that's a very good example, because instead of, you know, them calling thousands of phone calls, you know, on the human side, they can call, you know, fewer phone calls but have more quality conversations. And I guess then, because they are not overworked, no, so they are in a better mood and they can have a, you know, more enjoyable conversation with the clients and increase the whole experience. There are a few other questions. One is, I like this question, is that, you know, people, you know, typically tend to prefer to talk to human than robot. I mean, I'm old school too. You know, sometimes when you ask me to talk to chatbot, I hate it because they don't talk to me. How do you address that, right? You know, how do you, I think the whole change culture, how do you encourage your customer to talk to robot? Or how do you make them feel that it doesn't make a lot of difference talking to robot or human being, from your experience? Yeah.
So there are two answers to this question. The first one is it really depends on the use cases about customer engagement. Let's get back to my experience of the credit card example I mentioned earlier. So if there was not a robot call, then no human agents was able to call me, because there are so many customers for the bank around the world, and it's impossible for them to call each customer when they use their credit card in a foreign country. So in this case, the robot call is a very good tool for them to enable their business. It's not like use robocall to replace a customer agents. And the second factor is many clients told us that when there's a problem occur about their service, a lot of customers will make the telephone call to their customer service at the same time, and they will fall short about their customer service agents. And in this regard, they will use robocall to help them to provide customer service to their customers.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'm not going to keep you anymore, Kun, because I have Vit here. Vit has been waiting patiently. You know, the reason why we have Vit is because a lot of the questions you guys have asked, Vit is saying, yeah, I've been through that. I'm a user myself. So, you know, Vit sits in Ukraine right now, but he's been in Indonesia for a while. We were hoping he was going to wear his batik today. I guess not. Vit, thank you. Welcome to the webinar. If you can share with us, you know, based on your experience in Indonesia working for the fintech, I know you were one of the first few to start engage AI Ruder on robotic. Maybe some of the challenges, some of the benefits.
Yeah. Hi. Oh, sure. So I'm working for financial company, big financial group in the world, and we have some fintech in Asian region. It's all country included Indonesia. Last 3 years I work in Indonesia, and we face it with our partner Airtruder the start of this year. So the big challenge for us it was all question what you asked here in the chat. How we can to manage portfolio by robot, how we can to control what we should to do with our staffs, and do we need something else for manage portfolio better? I can tell you that the best case for your performance is a good partner who can provide you best service. The second is good strategy, and the third is just don't afraid to challenge yourself and your company for new opportunity and for new technology. So right now in Indonesia, our fintech not use any more collection operator, and we move it all staff who has good skills and very strong skills. We move it for selling company. So the system cover all our collection process. Yes, it's very hard organized, and it should be very strong strategy, but it's possible. You can do it. For example, in Indonesia, we teach robot with our partner a lot of things, and right now we have with them another part of using robot is for promotion for customer who has overdue and cannot to pay all soon. We promote by robot restructuring, we promote by robot overdue things, and we try to catch our customers only by our partners system.
But yes. What are the challenges, Vit? And when you started to want to adopt robot, what are some of the challenges and frustrations?
The big challenge is just to want to change everything in your company and try to do the best and use a lot of technology. Because if you use the technology, you can manage your portfolio more clearly and more professional. You don't need to afraid about that some people can to do some mistake or something else. Everything to do system and computer right now. So it's a big challenge, just not afraid to change something.
Yeah. I guess that's where I think AI Ruder and Active come in together, because we're in this together to help with this whole change management and working with you to look at your processes. Thank you.
Thank you. And with Airtruder, we try to work in all our country where we present our company, because we saw result, and I can tell true that it's the perfect result, and it's very, very help to company to save all cost to manage portfolio. So it's good things. Yeah. For example, in Ukraine, we use robot everywhere. For all big company and small company try to use robot. When you order something, or you call to bank, or you call to post. And right now, our government also try to involve a robot for answer for all questions what the customers has or some citizen of Ukraine has before government.
No, thank you, Vit. Hearing from a user is different from hearing from Kun and myself. So thank you for this sharing. We're just right on the time. I know I don't want to keep people away, but I'm just saying, if you're curious, there seems to be a lot of interest and curiosity. Contact Kun, contact myself. We're happy to do a demo for you, right? So we didn't want to do the demo here because we want you to get in touch with us, but the demo is really cool. We can actually do a live demo where the robot can call you and, you know, and for you to get a feel of what robot is. And I've done the demo myself. It's, you know, the robot doesn't sound as robotic as I thought. So it's a pretty cool experience. So anyway, at the back of that, we thank you all for your time. If there's any last minute question, comment, I'll give 1 minute to most people here. Okay, if not, you can always reach out, you know, to us on Quinn's LinkedIn or my LinkedIn, you know, company's LinkedIn Active Asia or through VA Consulting. You know, we'll address any concern. We can arrange the live demo if you want. And we will also send a newsletter within a week or so to just summarize the discussion. That's going to be posted on, I guess, AI Router's LinkedIn page, our LinkedIn page. So at the back of that, we hope you've you know, enjoyed the webinar. We hope at least you find this entertaining and useful. So thank you so much, and we hope to see you again. Thank you. Quinn and Vid, you want to stay around so we can take a group picture after this? Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you to all the participants. Thank you.